Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Wednesday, July 13th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, new video was released providing a clearer picture in the police response to the Uvalde mass shooting. The hesitation within the hallways and what city leaders are saying. Meanwhile, Tops grocery store in Buffalo, where 10 people were tragically killed in a mass shooting, will reopen this week, and a prayer vigil will also be held for community members to pay their respects to the lives lost. Then, the protests after George Floyd's death have created new conversations about police reform and how to deal with systemic racism. We have that story.
Plus, 50 Cent is producing and starring in a new horror movie, and two rap moguls just received the first Emmy nominations of their careers. We have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
We start today with new video taking us inside Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 students and 2 teachers were killed last month. Now, this is surveillance video of the incidents. First, we see the shooter walk into the school, then officers fill the hallway with several falling back as gunfire continues. Now, the video was published yesterday by the Austin American-Statesman, reportedly after being leaked by the paper. Now, much of the video is hard to watch. It was not supposed to be released until this weekend. The Texas Department of Public Safety officials, they say they are disappointed it was leaked before the victims' families had a chance to see it in a controlled setting. And a lot of parents are really upset that this video was leaked. They wanted the privacy to be able to see it first. They are also I saw a lot of parents were asking their Facebook friends and other people on social media that they follow not to repost this video because they're having a hard time actually reliving this. But the video shows what we already knew about all the lives that could have been saved. We saw the gunman come in at 11:33, literally 4 minutes later. Police were there and they did nothing. They literally stood around for about 70 minutes and did absolutely nothing. And now this is the video. I mean, there's video of them on their phone getting hand sanitizer while they hear gunshots going off. And so, you know, I guess one of my questions too is, while they were doing that, were they evacuating other classrooms? Like, what were they doing? Were they just standing around? I still have so many questions.
Yeah, I think that the hand sanitizer was a very big conversation. A lot of people noticed, because you can see them right there go and get hand sanitizer. And not that we're in the middle of a pandemic, you should not be making sure your hands are clear or whatever like that, but there's much more pressing issues at this time. But my question here was, well, what I think that the reason why they published this is because there's been so much backlash that police officers were doing nothing, that I think they wanted to show something. Hey, look at us. We're in action. We're running down the hallway. We're actually doing something, because you can see right there that they're, you know, lining up and going down the hallway. So I think that this was their effort to say, hey, we were actually doing something, but this just honestly made it worse, because the guy getting the hand sanitizer, right there, he really upsets me.
We just saw him get hand sanitizer, but this video was actually leaked. They didn't want it.
No,
they did not want it to come out.
Yeah.
So this is the public pushing for the release of this video because people want answers. So, you know, they're trying to figure out what happened, and, you know, they did everything in their power to keep us from seeing this.
And the fact that it did get released, I mean, as a parent, I'm just putting myself in their position and trying to understand, like, no, it's way too soon, right? So if it can be released, privacy, that's understandable. Then some of it is edited down because there's part of the footage that people are saying you can't show the power of the bullet, of the AR-15. People need to see. If you're going to show the video, show how the roof topping of the area was moving. It was being blown away by these bullets. That's how powerful they are, because now that makes a point of why this should be off the street, why these guns should not be available to anyone in this country just to have on your hip. And it's just so eerie seeing that man walk inside that building. And even seeing the little kid run back to the bathroom after he saw the shots.
At the very beginning. You know, this video was edited just a little bit from the people who released it, the newspaper that released it. They said that they they silenced the screams
of
the kids, but you could hear the gunshots, but they silenced the screams. So.
But we have to also keep in mind that when a person leaks a video, there's also an agenda as well. So I'm still wondering, what was the agenda?
Yeah,
was this to make the police look better, or what was it? Because it shows a lot. It's a lot that can be pulled.
There's nothing
from
you can do to make
here.
the police look better in that video.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing. And I think it was. So the newspaper leaked it, and I think it was more of public information. Like, I think that the public had been wanting to see this, and so when they got their hands on it, they said, listen, we're going to leak this video, because so many people have been asking what's going on, what's happening, and the police have been doing everything in their power to keep us from seeing this. So as a member of the media, I think this was more of information than it was malicious. I mean, but to the parents and to their point, they wanted the privacy to watch this in their own home.
I totally understand.
The Buffalo supermarket where 10 people were murdered by a white supremacist during a mass shooting will reopen later this week. Tops grocery officials say they're planning to hold a gathering with the moment of silence and prayer vigil on tomorrow, a day before its official reopening. The company officials say they have invited community members as well, city leaders and others, to honor the lives of the customers and employees slain in May. The store, which has been remodeled, was the only grocery store in Miles for the predominantly African-American neighborhood. I go back to remembering when my car was broken into, my first car. I remember my Saturn, my new radio was broken into, and I feel like I didn't even want that car anymore, because I felt so violated that, honestly, I understand that this is the only black store and people need to make money, but it's just like reopening it just reopens all of the wounds, and knowing that it was remodeled, it just still does not take away the fact that these lives were lost, black people just trying to get strawberries and everyday items for their household, that it just pains me to see it just reopen, and because it really just, at the end of the day, people just start forgetting about what it was and just go on with their regular lives.
Yeah, I think that for people who lived there, just going into that grocery store, no matter what, if you lost a loved one, if it's such a small knit, tight community that you knew someone who knew someone if you didn't know them personally. And so it's going to be a hard transition, like you said, no matter, even if it has been remodeled. But the Tops grocery store chain, they said they did give employees the opportunity to transfer if they no longer felt like they could work in that store. And I often wondered how the community was getting by, because it was the only grocery store in the area for miles. And so a lot of community organizations have been coming in to hand out food and personal hygiene products, cleaning supplies and things like that for the people there. And a lot of churches have been picking up the slack with providing food and things like that for the people in the area. And so it's a hard pill to swallow, because with it being the only grocery store there, you need it to survive. So what do you do?
Growing up in St. Louis at a young age, there was a mass shooting at a local grocery store there, and half the people wanted to shut it down, tear it down, start over. Others said, no, we want to show that we are going to rebuild and we're going to be strong together. So I'm sure if you ask those that live in that city, some may say we don't want it anymore. Some would say, no, we want to keep pushing and support this store. So we'll see what happens as it opens back up. All right, Bill Richardson has been a governor, a congressman, an ambassador, and a presidential candidate. He is also known as a negotiator who has brought Americans held abroad back to the U.S. Now the former New Mexico governor is planning on traveling to Russia to help free Brittney Griner. In the past, Richardson successfully negotiated the release of several Americans who have been held in Russia. That includes Trevor Reed, who was released from a Russian prison in April. The Pentagon has been in communication with Richardson about his plan to travel to Russia. The White House says Griner's release is a priority for President Joe Biden. Now, Griner is due in court on July 14th. Apparently, if he's had success in Russia, maybe he has a certain relationship that we don't know about that can get this job done. Whatever it takes, we definitely want to get her home sooner than later. And I just think that the longer she stays in that prison, the harder it's going to be on her mentally, too.
Yeah. We talked about this on Monday, Romeo. I definitely think that this just shows that they are working on it, regardless of what's happening with the trial. It says behind the scenes that the United States is taking action to get her home. And so hopefully he's able to negotiate. He did for Trevor Reed. So hopefully he's able to negotiate for Brittney Griner, whether that is a prisoner swap. I don't care. We want her home. And so hopefully when he gets there, they are receptive and responsive to those conversations, and we see what happens.
Definitely, like you said, his trajectory of being able to negotiate in situations like this is going going to be helpful because clearly Joe Biden and the WNBA and Brittney Griner's wife and LeBron James speaking up hasn't been enough to entice Russia to make sure that Brittney Griner is released. My only question is he going to have the power to get it done? He's one man. I don't know if he has a team of people. Is him just going by himself and saying, hey guys, I'm in Russia, release her? What is the process going to be like? Because it doesn't seem like it's a one swipe of a finger, because Russia, for some reason, they really are dedicated to hold on to Brittney Griner for some really strange reason. I'm just wondering if him going by himself is going to be...
Well, he runs an organization that negotiates for prisoners and hostages. It's called the Richardson Center for Global Engagement. And so that is what he does. It's what he's been doing since he, I believe, left being a governor in New Mexico. And so I'm sure he has a team of people who are either on the ground or making calls or working with the White House to make sure that this is done in a way that is safe and in her best interest.
He's had success in the past,
and
so
he's had
we're hoping he can do it one more time for
her.
her.
For sure. All right, soulmates, the vice chair of the January 6th committee is making some strong allegations against former President Donald Trump. Congresswoman Liz Cheney claims Trump tried to contact someone who was talking to the committee about the investigation. Now, Cheney says the panel has notified the Justice Department. Also discussed at the January 6th hearing, Trump's alleged ties to white supremacist groups. According to new evidence, a former Trump campaign manager believed Trump was, quote, asking for a civil war. 6 witnesses also detailed an Oval Office meeting in December of 2020 where the White House lawyers and Trump allies clashed over plans for overturning the election. The panel also uncovering a pro-Trump message board that encouraged rioters to bring weapons to the Capitol. So this 7th hearing was damning. Not that the others haven't been, but it's like, okay, how much more evidence do we need to know that this man is guilty? The fact that he called a witness that is supposed to testify just tells you that he has no hoof, whatever that word is, he does not own it, right?
Yes.
Because it's just clear that he takes this as a joke. The fact that you're calling someone who is set to testify, and hopefully the DOJ looks into this, and that's witness tampering. Can we get him on something? Even if it's witness tampering, can we get him on something?
You know, again, when we talk about Russia and them being so powerful, Trump is a person, I don't know how he is so powerful. I don't know how he's able to be so powerful. And because he has not had any accountability held on him for the numerous unearthly, inhumane things, you know, like you said, just like whatever word we can use for right now, so many awful things that he's done, there's been no accountability. So he's running amok right now in the government. He's like, hey, you know what? If no one's going to stop me, I'm just going to keep on going. And if we do not stop him, we're going to be very, very, very sad if we see him on the ticket again in 2024 and people actually vote for him.
That is so true. You know, I think about Donald Trump, either he's that naive and realize he's not doing anything wrong, or he's the kind of guy that he's been called before in the past. He loves to be praised. He thinks he can't be stopped. He's a bully. So he takes this and say, you know what, you guys can try and blame me for all you want, but I'm going to do what I want to do. This man has no remorse. He does not care at all.
You know, honestly, Romeo, if I was able to get away with murder, figuratively here, and no one would stop me, why would you stop me?
Right.
You know, if no one's going to stop me, I would just keep on going until, you know, why would I give up?
It's definitely, Demi, a sense of entitlement. And that's why we continue to see it because he has not been stopped. And the more you're not stopped at something, the more you continue to do it. And that's what we're seeing.
But that greed, it eventually catches up with you. So, we'll see his day in court hopefully one day soon. New Orleans leaders are working on making the city a safe haven for abortions. The city council passed a resolution not to use public dollars to pay for police to investigate and enforce the state's triggered law against abortions. New Orleans district attorney says he will not prosecute abortion providers in the city. Mayor Latoya Cantrell, she says that she wants to make her city a haven for women seeking reproductive freedom.
A white man who was convicted for sending over 100 racist threats is being sentenced to 4 months in prison, followed by probation. Matthew Gregg is the first person in Delaware convicted of a felony hate crime. Gregg will also be required to complete community service, anger management, mental and health substance abuse counseling as well. Now, the 27-year-old was arrested in 2020 after calling a black female employee in the state's governor's office 160 times in 3 weeks. Police said he targeted the woman with sexist and racist slurs, including the N-word. He was arrested and charged with harassment and terroristic threatening.
All right, the protests following George Floyd's death sparked new conversations about police reform, but it also created new language on how to deal with systemic racism. And one idea is to promote anti-racism. Now, that's the goal of actively changing policies and behaviors that harm African Americans and other non-whites in this country. To help discuss this is Myisha Hill, an anti-racism educator and author of Check Your Privilege. She's here to talk about her new book, Heal Your Way Forward, The Co-Conspirator's Guide to an Antitrust Future. Thank you, Myisha, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about exactly how you can heal your way forward? What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. So when I work with white folks, who we call co-conspirators, it actually starts with them being in a state of awareness. And from awareness, they move into listening, learning, grieving. Grief is part of their process. I know a lot of people say there's no room for white tears. And then they have to move in shame. So the reason why a lot of white folks in my work that I've learned have stopped and kind of ghost the process is that they feel guilt and shame for actions that they did not take earlier. And so one of the things that we do to heal forward is to look back at how they were socialized to uphold whiteness, how their privilege, whether it's racial privilege, economic privilege, ableism, which is able-bodied privilege, how that allows them to continue to move in the world unconsciously without thinking about how it affects people of the global majority or people, Black folks and other non-Black persons of color. And so it's really just the practice of having them look back, look forward, doing a lot of internal work and really building towards this reparative future.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, though, but your book essentially, though, is it guiding white people to be better people and helping them do that? But is that on the responsibility of the Black individual? Is that our responsibility? Shouldn't our allies be having these types of conversations with the racists or bigots? Why is that our job to educate them?
Well, first, I want to say it's not our job to educate them, but those of us who choose to make it our job, to put ourselves front and center to lead these conversations, it's really important, right? There's nothing wrong with affinity groups. There's nothing wrong with affinity groups, I'll say that. However, those with the lived experience, those who have seen, those with the lived experience, those of us who are Black or brown or indigenous or Southeast Asian, who make the conscious choice to lead this work, our work should be centered and we should be the thought leaders in it to push white folks forward. One of my really good friends says all the time, for white folks who lead the work, how can you be the problem and the solution? So how can you actually show up and lead and be engaged, but then provide a solution, right? When those of us who are on the front lines with the marginalized identity who choose, right? Because we don't have to do this. Like it's a choice. Who choose to step into the calling to do it, we just feel empowered to do so. So it's not up to Black folks to teach or brown folks or other folks of non-Black persons of color to teach this work. But if you have the call and you want to answer it, step into it fully. I'm not disregarding allies. We need allies in this work. But I personally believe that the work should be led by Black persons and other non-Black persons of color.
I believe it's definitely a calling to do this type of work. Your book asks, what will this world look like in 7 generations? And I'm just curious, why did you choose that marker, 7 generations?
Well, what I know about epigenetics and trauma is that I personally have the ability to look back 7 generations of what happened in my family's bloodline. And so it was really important for me to resolve any mental health issues, any markers, right, from epigenetic trauma that was passed down through my ancestors so that I can help build a reparative future for my own children, the legacy, what's what I call the legacy work as we move forward. It's important for us to think about, how am I showing up in relationship with these people, right? How am I showing up? How am I teaching my children to show up in the world as bold, as Black, as powerful, and yet still see the humanity of other people, right? Because a lot of us aren't socialized to do that. It's just look out for ourselves. Whatever happens, happens. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You got this. So looking back, I can see that there was this idea of white supremacist ideologies of rugged individualism, a sense of urgency, being professional all the time. In order to heal our way forward, I don't want my children to duplicate that same system. So it's me really training my children and even the folks that I work with about community care, the importance of building upon community, the importance of looking at the foundation that was poured before you. So I have to look back at the work of W.E.B. Du Bois, and I have to look back at Harriet Tubman, and I look back at Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde and Kimberly Crenshaw and see what they were building and how I can step forward and continue their legacy. I believe we have a responsibility to continue the ancestors' work to heal and build forward.
Absolutely. We definitely do. We are running out of time, but I wanted to talk really quick about your book. It mentions the Great White Awakening. We thought, we had hit a turning point, but it seems like it was short-lived. How do you, as an educator, when you're talking and you're in these rooms and you're doing the work, how do you put that together? Are they still doing the work? Are we still talking about doing the work? What are some of the responses that you're getting from that?
Yeah, a lot of the responses is I have leaned back into my privilege. I teach a workshop called Breaking the Addiction to Privilege, because literally it is the white folks have this social and emotional comfort that they just have to have all the time. And for those of us who are Black, we don't have that psychological and emotional safety, right? And so what I hear is, oh, I've stepped out. Oh, I feel so guilty. Oh, I'm shamed. And it's like, yeah, you were part of the pseudo white awakening. So see this as your opportunity to reawaken. It's just the constant reminders to recommit and re-engage them in the work. And that's through restorative and transformative justice, and also keeping them in action, because a lot of white folks kind of get stuck in, what do I do? And so it's keeping them in action, but then also keeping them in the process of transformative and restorative justice so that we can all be seen as whole and human.
Absolutely. Myisha T Hill, thank you so much for joining us. Your book comes out August 9th. Can you tell our soulmates where they can find it?
You can find the book at bookshop.org and or Barnes & Nobles and their favorite local independent retailer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very insightful, Mimi. A toy train display at a Las Vegas mall has Black people in the area very upset. The display featured a model of a lynching. The Las Vegas Garden Railway Society put together the display, which showed two trains rolling on tracks passing by various scenes. One of them was of three white people preparing to hang a Black man. The display brought protests to the Sunset Mall. People demanded the display to be removed. The president of the Railway Society apologized for that display, saying they never meant to offend anyone. The display was eventually taken down.
Never meant to offend anyone. Wow. Detroit and the surrounding counties are settling a class action lawsuit over how cash bail practices have been used to unconstitutionally jail poor and working class people. The agreement requires the Wayne County courts to limit its use of unaffordable bail on poor defendants. Advocates for bail reform say the Wayne County program model could be a model for court systems around the nation. They say high bail is a way to maintain racial and wealth disparities in the criminal justice system. They point out many of the people affected by cash bail practices have not been convicted of any crimes, but because they can't afford to pay their bill, they're sitting behind bars.
An African-American worker at John Deere says he was dubbed the angry Black man by his co-workers at his company's Iowa plant. Johnny Hogan is filing a racial discrimination lawsuit against the Tractor Supply Company. Hogan says the harassment from his white co-worker started since he took the job in 2010. He says the company allowed a culture of racism to flourish and thrive within the facility. Now, Hogan says people constantly made comments about him eating fried chicken and working in the cotton industry. He says he was subjected to threats, including a supervisor saying he needed to be changed to a dock. Hogan says he complained and no action was taken. He was eventually transferred in 2021 to a new department where he says he experienced even more racism. He was even referred to as boy. The statement from John Deere says the company, though, does not tolerate any discrimination in any form.
A 15-year-old New Mexico boy is dead after investigators suspect a SWAT team's tear gas canister may have sparked a fire in a house. Police were looking for Keont Kelly, who was wanted for violating probation. According to reports, Kelly fled to a home where 15-year-old Brett Rosenell later walked into. Authorities say they tried for several hours to get the two to leave the house. Albuquerque police say the pair barricaded themselves inside the house for several hours. Cops say they used the tear gas canisters to flush the pair out, and they say Kelly came out of the house when the blaze started. He was treated for burns. However, the 15-year-old died from smoke inhalation. The department maintains their stance that Kelly and Rosenau had enough time to evacuate before detonating the device. However, Rosenau's family believes the police were negligent.